All right,
Like,
so I wanted to see. Do you think this dude's right about this? So let's start with this first tweet over here from the publisher from Jacobin, right? Um, here we go.
yeah, this is fucked up.
So Facebook is blocking their Jacobin's videos for violating community standards and triggering keywords such as Marxist, Bolivia, or Biden, right? Yeah, Anna's on there. You know, you were telling me to watch her on the weekend shows, right? So
Hmm.
I can learn to, be a little bit of a smoother news guy. But
Hmm.
Jimmy Dore uh, made a point, and I think it's a fair point. About half of it, I think, is a fair point, where the censorship online will always come back to bite the left, and I agree with that. I agree with that point where we shouldn't go and cheer for New York Post articles getting blocked on Twitter or Facebook because it's a right wing publication. I don't think that's a way about it. But the part that started this whole conversation between him and Anna was where she lumped TYT into it. See, as far as censorship goes,
What?
yeah. See, so he said, I have had many spirited debates about censorship in TYT Studio. I was warning that pro censorship will always come back to bite the left harder. Reminder that no matter how much you hate someone who is speaking, the antidote to bad speech is more speech, not censorship.
Um, who is
So
pro censorship?
yeah, so Anna went and clarified this thing and answered back and said that she doesn't think Alex Jones should be able to use platforms to encourage people to threaten, harass parents of children that were gunned down. The Posner family had to move 7 times because of it. If Jimmy wants to provide a real example of how we're pro censorship, I'd love to hear it.
I'm like,
So then that went on to Jimmy saying, "Yes, I'm for censorship. I'm for censoring that guy for sure. Now, can you point out where I am for censorship? If someone breaks free
I mean,
speech laws, that's for a court to decide, not Mark Zuckerberg."
but a court did decide, didn't it?
Yes. So
Like I said, that's a bad, like,
that very censorship you
he's
cheer
not
on
reporting the news
is
though. He's a
now being
performance actor.
yes.
Like he's doing performance art, and some
Yeah.
people believe it to be news, right?
Right.
Like,
Exactly.
and
And
he's using it to cause real world harm to
harm to
people.
people. That's actually doxing and getting people putting people in harm's way. So Anna's response to the whole that response was, being obtuse is pretending there are no limitations to free speech. Inciting violence against people for money, as Alex Jones did with the Sandy Hook victims, isn't protected speech. Telling those victims to just wait as the courts decide, wait for the courts as their lives are being threatened is ridiculous. And Jimmy came back again, where when you are pro censorship, you have to rely on strawman argument like this. With just admit that you're cool with Mark Zuckerberg censoring, just
What?
own it. Have the courage to admit, even as you're being censored, you're cool with anonymous Silicon Valley bureaucrats censoring you without due process.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, no.
so Anna capped
Jimmy's
it
being
off.
obtuse.
Yeah.
Like,
So Anna came back and capped this off. The
yeah,
last one that we read. I'm in favor of censoring speech that incites violence, just like our Constitution does. But I'm not in favor of censoring speech I simply disagree with. Like when you said, "I don't give a fuck about India" to defend Tulsi Gabbard. I think that was an easy distinction to understand.
it
So yeah, I
is,
mean,
and
come
that's the
on.
thing that drives me nuts about Jimmy, though. It's like,
Yeah.
even if he's right on the substance, you're not. Why are you being an asshole like that? Like she's
Yeah.
agreeing with you. Like you, like Alex Jones is not the same. He's not a news source, right? Like he
Right.
does not report the news. He hasn't reported the news in a long time.
Right.
He, you know, is a conspiracy guy. Like that's always been his thing. Like uh, he's just like he's so over the top that it's like it's hard to like I still wouldn't have like deplatformed him. I I would have
I,
given him like TOS warnings like hey, you have to get your
yeah.
people
And
to stop
I
attacking
think
these Sandy Hook
that's
victims,
well. You see,
you
I think
know?
that's fair to go for public figures to have to abide by terms of service.
No.
And I think if you're talking about people that are in office like Trump that violate terms of service, I still think that there should be some kind of ramifications like they have now. I think that's pretty decent. Where they flag a comment and they say this violates terms of service. That seems like a pretty good remedy. you know.
Like, I would
But
even go so far as to say that, like, I'm okay with Alex Jones saying Sandy Hook was a conspiracy. Like, I'm okay with that. What I'm not okay with is, I don't know, did he specifically tell his people to go to their house?
yeah, I think at one point he did. That was what
Yeah,
that was where everything. That's where the
that's a
court got
TOS
involved.
violation.
Right,
Yeah,
and I
that's
mean that's where the
inciting
court got
violence.
involved. So
That's like what Anna said. That's a TOS violation. Those kinds of
and
words are not protected under
right,
First Amendment.
right, and
So,
even if we get what we want, and that is to have these social media oligarchs have to have all their platforms regulated as a public utility, even if we get that,
mm-hmm,
that still violates the First Amendment because you're inciting violence.
mm-hmm.
So let's not act like it's a simple pro censorship argument that is coming from
Yeah,
Anna
I don't know
or
what
even
Jimmy's argument
TYT.
is there. What a fucking dumbass. Like, why is he
Well,
making that? Like,
he drew TYT into this thing about their pro censorship because they were championing. I mean, their pro censorship on some kind of tangent about him saying that
no,
the left
like,
doesn't act on right wingers getting deplatformed. So I mean, it's happened a couple times now, but I
I
think
mean,
and especially in Alex Jones's case,
yeah,
right?
I mean, I don't know. I, like I said, I am for the First Amendment. Like, I'm
Mm-hmm.
for the interpretation of that. Like, I'm not going to protect hate speech. I'm not going to protect incitements to violence. Like, I don't know how you can make an argument that you should. But I understand what Jimmy's saying. Like, I don't want Zuckerberg to be in charge of
Right,
deciding what's what. But in that instance, you can get a I mean, I'd rather have a system where you have to get a restraining order, a temporary restraining order
right,
to prove that somebody's causing harm, right? Like,
right.
I think that
So,
should be the solution. But it's one of those things where it's like you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't.
mm-hmm.
Why are you? It's like the same sort of vibes like we were just talking about with AOC. It's like you can't get like we don't have like the system is so fucked up as is that like we have to take some concessions to get anything fruitful, right? It sucks, but like you know
all right.
I don't know what you're supposed to do there. Like if he's if people are being real life harmed
Yeah,
from
I
that,
mean,
that's
what I
clearly a
get
TOS
from what I
violation.
get from that is rather, I think leftists just have like an inordinate appetite to go at each other, regardless of how much they agree.
I think it's a certain segment of them,
Yeah,
like 10% of them, and like you see them, like you can tell almost what their reply is going to be. If you see a post, you're like, oh shit, this is going to be in there, and you see the replies, and you can almost verbatim, you know,
yeah, yeah,
like predict what they're going to say,
exactly. But
and it's the same crowd. It's like you know,
but
you are not helping anybody. Like you know, and I feel like a dick saying that because it's one of those things where it's like it's a nuanced argument. It's hard to say a fine line like this is what's worth fighting for and this is not what's worth fighting for. It's really hard to kind of draw that line, and that's hard for people. So people try to just go 100% pure, and it's hard to tell them not to. But it's like at the same time, you have to like it's all about forming consensus. It's all about forming coalitions and all that. Like you can't always get everything you want.